5:45, and exclusive to Drive Time Radio at Drive Time. Here we go with Greatest Hits Radio and our Confessions feature, which Matt's been looking forward to.
I have.
All weekend. He hasn't given anything a moment's
Nothing
thought.
else.
Nothing else happening. If you fancy getting a smart speaker, what you do is you send in your confession and you spend a bit of time thinking about it. You remove any reference to the banned topic of laxatives, and you make sure that you have. Yes, if it.
Oh, really?
Yes, obviously, if it's a criminal act, then that's not acceptable. And please don't send in a memoir. But apart from that, we'd like to hear from you. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Today's tale comes from Roberto. Father Simon, Brother Matt, Sister Susie from the pub, and Nigel if it's a Thursday, or if he's just listening at home whilst making the tea. It's great to have you back on Drive Time where you belong.
Yeah.
Okay, well, forgiven. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Roberto.
This is the customary opening. The sin I must confess dates back just 3 weeks.
Wow.
Which makes it incredibly contemporary. Most of them are like 30 years old. Roberto's feeling very confident, I think. After my Norwegian cruise was cancelled for the second year, I decided to make the best of my week off and to take a road trip around the NC 500, the 516-mile route around the dramatic north coast of the Scottish Highlands. Just me, my tent, Stephen Fry voicing the sat-nav, and Sally, my car. Quite fancy having Stephen Fry on the sat-nav, actually. I decided to, because you would do whatever he said.
Yeah,
if he said to turn around where possible, you would do it because it's Stephen Fry. Anyway, I digress. I decided to camp on proper sites. I like the middle ground of feeling close to nature, but still having showers and toilets. I'm no Bear Grylls and have no desire to be, thank you very much. The NC 500 starts and ends in Inverness and is the best drive you can do in Great Britain. I was blessed with great weather, accompanied by my favourite driving tunes playlist, and the scenery becoming more dramatic and breathtaking with every turn. It was bliss. There was one issue, though. Other people.
Oh, obviously.
Always. Don't they always mess things up for you? Just when things are going fine, other people turn up. More specifically, says Roberto, other campers. One night at Dunnet Head, the northernmost point of mainland Britain, at a campsite in an enormous empty field, a couple decided to pitch 6 feet away from me. They could have camped anywhere, but instead they pitched right next to me. So rather than gently fall asleep listening to the North Sea break against the cliffs, I had to listen to one of them snore so loudly I thought he was playing a trombone. Thanks. On the way home on my final day after finishing the route, I visited Loch Lomond. I had booked a pitch right on the loch side, a picture postcard setting for the last night of an amazing week. Later that evening, returning from my shower, I encountered 2 couples from Motherwell. Actually, you should have changed all this. It's very specific.
Right. Oh, dear.
Called Bob and Phyllis.
Yeah.
Outside their tent, right behind mine. They had a fire going, were seated around a camping table, enjoying a few beverages and chatting. Unfortunately, they continued to drink, and the chatting got louder before becoming quite a heated debate. At 11:30, someone reminded them of the quiet time from 10 p.m, but they still continued. At about midnight, I shouted from my tent that it was late and asked them please to be quiet. Didn't go down too well, Father Simon, after shouting many things not suitable for broadcast and threatening to go over there and sort him out. Eventually, they went to bed. The next morning at about 7:30, I awoke, got dressed, packed up the car, ready for the drive home, with a visit to Glasgow on the way. I walked back to where my tent had been to take one last look at the loch. I glanced over at the tent of my previously noisy neighbours. On my way back to the car, I regret to report I had a little accident.
Oh, no.
As I tripped, falling heavily on their camping chairs and their fire pit. And unfortunately, the ensuing smoky intermingling entanglement resulted in the pit and both of their camping chairs needing considerable specialist repair.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
If such technology exists, which it doesn't.
No.
As anyone who owns a barbecue will know. But it's okay, I was fine, thank you for asking, says Roberto. Well, I returned to Sally and I headed on my way. Sally, you remember being the name of the car.
Yeah.
In case you've just arrived and thinking that's a very unpleasant way to refer to your other half. So Roberto says, who am I asking forgiveness from? Well, I'm not sure, to be honest, though I wish I could have fallen on their blingy, bad taste inflatable canoe, but I missed that. Anyway, I'm not looking for forgiveness, but I wouldn't mind a smart speaker. And remember, revenge is always bad, kids. Yours humbly. And then it's signed, call me Roberto or something. Right, okay. Well, let's see where we go with this, because I think Roberta might be in trouble here, but let's check in with Sister Susie from the pub, who's producing the show.
Well, do you know what? I was quite on his side for most of that, because, yes, it can be annoying when other people camp right next to you, and they could have gone anywhere, and they're really noisy, or they snore, and it's just horrible. And you do want to shout many things that you can't say on the radio. However, I don't know if it was...
He had an accident.
Oh, I don't know how much of an accident it was, though. And maybe he should have told them.
He just tripped on the chairs and the fire pit.
But he's not asking for forgiveness,
No,
so he doesn't care. So therefore, I don't care, Roberto. So I'm not forgiving
Not
you.
forgiveness. Okay, Brother Matthew.
Oh, I mean, clearly, call me Roberto, as we're going to call him. I think, I mean, he's not interested in any forgiveness. There's no remorse at all from our cousin there, Roberto. I'm going to say forgiven, just because, you know, we've all other people are a nightmare. I mean, obviously, humanity and all of that's all great, but other people, goodness me. And camping rage strikes me as very fertile ground. So as the strains of U2 begin, I believe that I'm going to forgive.
Okay, all right.
Was I going on?
No, I wasn't implying that you were going on.
There's a bit of Bono about to start.
I was just looking at Sister Susie, who's thinking news.
News.
That's what she was thinking. Anyways, the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Roberto? Yes or no? This might be a tight one, Roberto, I think. 61054. The first word of your text has to be Simon, or it goes somewhere else. On the confession front, we heard from Roberto and the tale of his strange camping accident, which ended in the kind of, smoky intermingling of chairs and a fire pit. Anyway, here comes the people's verdict with
Everyone is forgiving.
Okay, right.
So
good.
campers got off lightly, basically. Forgiven other people, enough said, says Anne in Gloucester. Andy Riley, confession, totally forgiven. They didn't care. Why should he? Revenge is a dish best served using a fire pit. Obviously, we don't condone. Andreas,
it was an accident.
Andreas en route to Manchester, forgiven all day long. Had I been there, it would have been more than the chairs in the pit. Ashley Bell from Sale, I'm going to forgive. I've been camping once and I hated every minute of it. Trailer Jim in Somerset, forgiven. I'm fishing at the moment and I can hear a guy down the other end of the lake snoring. Tomorrow on my way home, I feel oops, sorry, didn't see that coming on. Greatest Hits FM is brill. And finally, Roberto's obviously forgiven, says Chris in Cumbria. Nothing worse than boorish camping neighbours. And it's at times like these that I wonder what the prodigy would say.
Oh, right. Okay. So I think confessions that involve other people who...
Yes.
Why are you here?
Why are you where I am?
Literally, it's a huge field. I'm on the beach. Why are you sitting next to me?
Yeah.
Those.
Yeah.
Confessions from the last 3 weeks, because that's when this one happened, and camping.
Yeah.
Confessions. Oh, sorry about that.
Is that someone's phone?
And the next word is... it's one for the kids. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. It's 14 minutes away from 6 o'clock, which means just one thing. It means that confessions are back on your radio. If you have a confession, if you're tempted to confess, you send it to confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. And if we like the tale and we broadcast it, you get a smart speaker, which seems like a pretty good deal. Monday to Thursday, People's Verdict is expected shortly on 61054. But hang on, because you don't know what the confession is just yet. Even though if you're Matt, you'll forgive. If you're Susie, then you probably won't. And that is the yin and the yang in the universe.
Isn't it, though?
I don't know.
It is.
No idea. I don't even know what I'm talking about, really. Anyway, so here we go. Tonight's confession comes from Big Boy Ronald.
Okay.
Thanks, Big Boy Ronald.
Wow.
Father Simon, Brother Matt from the sewer, Sister Susie from the pub. Greetings and blessings to you all. My story is set in the mid-1980s. I hope that's vague enough for you. I think that's fine, because yesterday's was quite specific.
Yeah.
So this is Far Vega. At the age of 33, Father Simon, I returned from a 2-year contract in the Middle East, decided to spend a couple of months at home with my parents, working in my dad's business before heading off again. Sounds as though it could be a spy, I think. This was an interesting period of adjustment for us all, but I soon acquired a girlfriend called Fabulous Flora. This is because she was called Flora, and she really was quite fabulous, darling. Fortunately, she lived less than a quarter of a mile away, which made romantic visits a whole lot easier. Things can get complicated when you're a 33-year-old living at home with your parents, so thank heavens for Flora. I think we can.
Okay.
What?
Okay. Nothing. Come on.
After some evenings out with my beau, for various evenings, that's B-E-A-U,
I see.
works on the paper. Otherwise, you might be thinking I'm going out with my bow and arrow, which is something else altogether.
No.
For various reasons I can't quite recall now, I used to get home between 1 and 2 a.m. But having a very strict... matron. But having a very strict Catholic mum, she would always put the equally strict Catholic dog called Damien in the hall at night if I'd gone out. Can dogs be Catholic?
I'm not... Well,
I don't
I don't think so.
I
sure
would tiptoe in at all hours, smelling of Flora, doubtless, and Damien
my
would wake up and my mum would come down and tear strips off me. Well, I gave as good as I got. I thought it was ridiculous I was being subject to scrutiny at my age. I was 33, for heaven's sake. I didn't need a sermon about how to behave, thank you very much. Although it was nice to have my laundry done and food provided, obviously.
yeah.
Thumbs up and smiley face emoji. Thanks, Mum. Plus, also, remember, Fabulous Flora and I had lots to discuss. You'd be amazed. Our chats about the demise of the Soviet Union went on so much longer than I expected. We kept going for ages. Anyway, to give my sitcom life more impetus, I decided to outfox Damien the Demon Catholic dog and my mother, Demon Catholic mother, and I decided to, in future, exit my bedroom window with a ladder that I'd put outside, because that's obviously what you do in tricky situations like this. I consider this to be a brainwave. In the middle of the summer, I slept in at Floradors after negotiations went on longer than expected. And when I arrived home, it was 5 a.m., but it was already light. I could be in big trouble here with the prospect of being attacked by Damien and by my mother. Now, you should know, in geographical setting, that when my contract had started 2 years earlier, my parents' house was the last on the edge of the village. But whilst I was away, they'd built a new development in the next field. I obviously knew this, I'm not an idiot, but I wasn't thinking it, and that's the key. So as I carefully climbed the ladder and entered my own bedroom, unbeknownst to me, I'd been spotted by an eagle-eyed / incredibly nosy long-distance lorry driver in the new development who had an early start. Being a good Samaritan / nosy Parker, he rang my dad to alert him to the presence of a burglar who had only just this second broken in to his very house. I heard the phone ring and my dad coming across the landing at pace. I just had time to kick off my shoes and jump into bed fully clothed. My dad burst in with a stick. "Son," he said. "Son, has anyone at all, like a burglar, climbed in through the window?"
Anyone like a burglar? Right.
I replied, "Not to my knowledge." Dad said, "Well, you were probably asleep and didn't notice." They're super crafty these days.
Yeah.
"I'm going to search downstairs." I said, "No, hang on. I don't want you going down there on your own. Give me a minute and I'll join you." So I let enough time pass so I could pretend to throw on some clothes. And we searched the house room by room. I would ostentatiously shout, "Clear!"
Yeah. Okay.
as we now switch from sitcom to police drama.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We searched high and low. I even looked in the cupboard under the stairs. No one there. Amazing. The nosy Parker lorry driver knew absolutely nothing. Anyway, despite a meticulous search, we didn't find anyone and we all returned to our respective bedrooms. I never got round to telling my dad the truth. Sadly, it's now too late, but maybe you could be the people doing the honours on this. Forgiveness, please, says Big Boy Ronald. Well, I mean, after that, it was quite a tale from Big Boy Ronald. Thank you very much indeed, Ron, for that. I mean, he kind of did nothing wrong, really, I don't think, but let's see how Sister Susie sees it.
Well, I don't know. You know, as my mum would say, if you live under my roof, You live by my rules.
I see.
So even if he was 33 and maybe his mum was very, very strict, if he was living there, probably rent-free, and getting all his cleaning done, then maybe he should have been in the time that his mum wanted to be in. And therefore, he wouldn't have to climb up a ladder into his bedroom. And therefore, he wouldn't get caught by the nosy neighbour thinking he was a burglar. So therefore, I think, big boy Ronald, you're not so big anymore. Not forgiven.
Brother Matthew.
Am I the only one who's thinking of Ronnie Corbett in this situation, in that he's living with his parents, he's 33, and he's having to get up a ladder to be able to get into his own bedroom? Paul, I'm very much in Big Boy Ronald's corner here. I mean, you do what you can. Obviously, he met Flora. Who knows where that relationship was going to go? Not very far, I'm going to guess. But anyway, I'm going to definitely forgive because, he had to deal with the dog. And who wants to deal with the dog when you've come back after that? So, yes.
Can dogs be Catholic? I think it's throwing up all kinds of interesting questions.
No,
Probably
definitely
not.
questions we don't want to get into. So I am going to forgive.
Okay, so the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Big Boy Ronald? 61054 on the text. You start your message with Simon. Is Big Boy Ronald forgiven? Yes or no? However, we did have a confession earlier from Big Boy Ronald, all about breaking into his own house and then pretending that there was a burglar to his dad. Anyway, the people's verdict is in like this.
Yes, Steve has clearly cracked the code for getting read out, which is basically to say you agree with me. He says, I forgive Ronald. I also agree with Matt, comparing it to Ronnie Corbett in Sorry. Not forgiven, says Eve, 33 and working in the Middle East. He must have had some money. Rent a hotel room on the nights he wants to discuss Lenin and Trotsky with Fab Flo. Forgiven, says Kay in Northumberland. That's a lot of work to go through just to escape being caught by your mum. And finally, Andy in Chesterfield says forgiven, based on his ability to improvise under such difficult circumstances whilst trying to keep Flora the Explorer happy.
Hello.
Hello.
So, confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. If you have a confession, send it in. Comply with the rules. Thank you very much indeed. And you can get a smart speaker. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Greatest Hits Radio. Well, it's 30 minutes to 6 o'clock. If you have a confession, we'd like to hear from you. If we use your confession, you get a smart speaker. Today's confession comes from Icebox. Thank you, Icebox.
Okay.
A gangster name, really. Father Simon, Brother Matthew, Sister Susie from the great beyond, or just a pub in Bristol. My confession dates back to my wedding, 2000, and then a subsequent 2001 tour by the greatest band in the world, who are, of course, The Damned.
Oh, already forgiven. Already forgiven.
You don't know.
I know.
That's-
It involves his
that's a-
wedding.
That's a
Not
terrible
forgiven.
thing.
Absolutely.
Our wedding was one where we were able to supply the alcohol. So we dutifully went off to France to do the research. This involved buying an awful lot of white and red wine and champagne. My wife, the fabulous Fiona, seemed to be getting legless in the car park as she tried the various bottles just to decide which ones to buy in bulk. We've only had 2 paragraphs, that is...
Yeah.
Anyway, we bought far too much, and the remnants after our big day consisted of a whole case of champagne. And this we put away under the stairs for a special occasion. This is what we agreed we'd use it for, a special occasion. Fast forward then to the Damned tour. I believe it was the Grave Disorder tour at the old Civic Hall. I'm not mentioning which Civic Hall for reasons that will become obvious.
Okay.
Anyway, because I'm a very useful guy to have around, I knew the way to get backstage by sneaking out of a door at the side of the hall and down a corridor. I realized that sneaking in is particularly now frowned on, but back in 2001, everyone was doing it.
Oh, really?
Were they? Were they?
Me and my friend Oz managed to get backstage and into the band area. We had a few beers, and Dave Vanian, who you will know is the lead man from The Damned, was surprisingly not too impressed to see us there. You imagine.
Wow.
But agreed that if we could bring back some drink, he would let us back in. So we left, and I can only assume that the band breathed a sigh of relief that we were gone and they forgot about us. Now, I live only 5 minutes from this Civic Hall, and despite Oz telling me not to, I decided that this was indeed
Oh, no.
a special occasion, and the champagne left over from our wedding
No.
That's not my wedding to Oz. My wedding to the fabulous Fiona would do the trick. I regretfully did not consult my wife on this matter. So I had to be a bit quiet in case I woke up the fabulous Fiona. So as a quick in the front door, under the stairs, grabbed the box of champagne and out again. Off we went, thinking how clever we were. Or at least I did. We got back to the dressing room door and Captain Sensible let us in. I said, Captain? He said, what? Anyway, we proceeded to offload bottles of warm champagne to everybody. Neat, huh? Anyway, I apologise that they were a bit warm, but to be honest, no one seemed that bothered. Dave Vanian and his wife Patricia Morrison, ex-Sisters of Mercy and the Damned bass player, they appeared and they seemed to be quite impressed that I had indeed found some alcohol and impressed that I gave them and they were impressed. I gave them a bottle of warm champagne to take home, as by then they were leaving. We stayed a fair while, mainly drinking with the roadies and happy talking with the captain, and a good night was had by all. But you see, Father Simon, I need forgiveness, particularly from my wife, the fabulous Fiona, who had woken up and assumed that we'd been robbed, what with the empty cupboard and the fact that I'd left the front door open. She was considerably distressed. Her argument, as I understand it now, there's a phrase that's doing a lot of work, was that a special occasion is usually defined as a family gathering, a baby's arrival, a christening, or something for the whole family. Also, that it was her champagne too, and I shouldn't just have handed it out to ingratiate myself with the louche rockers known as the Damned. Yes, I like saying the word louche. If she'd called the police, as she was quite entitled to, I'd have been wasting police time and you wouldn't have read this out.
Yes.
So she didn't.
So she didn't.
And therefore you can. Someone who knows the rules.
Yeah.
Because that's actually true, because as soon as the police get involved, then we can't use the confession.
Right,
Okay. I'd also like to apologise to Mr. Vanian for giving him what could be considered stolen goods. I did ask him many years later if he remembered the champagne, and he said he vaguely remembered the incident, but I think he was being polite. Anyway, that's the day's confession, which comes from Icebox, well-known gangster who lives 5 minutes from the Civic Hall. Checking in with Sister Susie. I know what she's going to say there.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to say. Icebox. Well, I think you're despicable. You didn't share your wine with your wife. You took it without asking, and more importantly, you drank it warm. Champagne.
That's true. And it was sanctified champagne. It was for family purposes.
The biggest error you made there is beautiful champagne that you brought all the way back from France, and you didn't chill it before drinking it.
There's a woman from the pub.
Not forgiven. Not forgiven
Brother
from me.
Matthew.
Is she really going out with him? Oh, superb. Here's the problem, is that when you're saving champagne, it basically never gets drunk. Because you're always, oh man, I'm not sure this is the event where we need to crack open this. Oh, maybe we should leave it until X happens. It never happens. So why not just drink it with members of the Damned? That's what I say. Couldn't have thought of a better time at all. And Fiona knows about it. She's fine with it now, I'm sure. A lot of water under the bridge. I think she is. Is she really going out with him? So, yes, definitely forgiven.
Before the news, we had a top confession from Icebox with a fantastic backstage confession involving stolen champagne, but not really, shared, but it was warm, shared with the Damned. So even Sisters of Mercy got a reference from Icebox. So the people's verdict is in, and here it is.
And it's mainly not forgiven because of the not chilled champagne. Unforgiven, I'm afraid, say Neil and Lucy from the hot tub, only because bubbly should be chilled. Sacrilege. Alan in Huyton, I'm with Sister Susie. Warm champers is sacrilege, so I'll be damned if I'm going to forgive.
Good.
Eloise says forgiven. Eloise says forgiven, as the band have to bear some responsibility here. They sent 2 gate crashers off for booze and happily let them back in when they found some. The band had no idea where they got it from, but they supped without remorse. And finally, Les Wilson in Dorrington in Wiltshire says, read today's confession. I'm with Susie. Warm champagne? Yuck. Might as well have just poured it down the sink. Didn't this guy have the wit to buy some cold beers from the nearest offie? Not forgiven.
This is a high-class audience, isn't it? I mean, champagne, yes, if it's warm. No, absolutely unforgiven. Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. Icebox gets the smart speaker, and if you have a confession, maybe it's a backstage confession, we'd love to hear it. Confessions at Greatest Hits Radio. We're broadcasting with the door open now. This is a new policy. So if you hear anyone walking past, and if you hear the Hoover going or something like that, it's because the door is open. And that's a classic jam.
Classic.
Town Called Malice, 1982. If you've got a confession, we'd like to hear it. If we use it, you get a smart speaker. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Today's comes from Grabber. Thanks, Grabber. Simon, I need to ask for forgiveness. Given the nature of the incident, I think absolution from Sister Susie with her heavenly connections would be appropriate, as it may need some spiritual intervention. What are your heavenly connections?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. The incident happened in 1969 when my elder brother and I were sent to an all-boys grammar school as boarders. The school was a very old stone building with cloisters and a clock tower, looking like something from Tom Brown's school days. In the boarding house, a small separate wing, as boarders only numbered about 60 from a school of 500. There were 2 housemasters resident in the boarding house who took it in turns to be on duty. The rules for going out on a Saturday night were that at my age, which is 17, you could go out provided you signed a book stating where you were going and you'd be back by 11. My friend Gob and I had been invited to a party locally. Consequently, we went to see the housemaster to ask for special permission to stay out till 11. This housemaster was also head of classics at the school, was fluent in Latin, Greek, was into archaeology, classical music. He smoked like a trooper and normally had a scotch on the go. These are our kind of teachers.
Truly.
He also had a penchant for fresh cream buns. Needless to say, his nickname was Cream Buns. And Cream Buns said I could go out, and so could Gob go to this party. Now, one of the fads in the 60s were Ouija boards.
Oh, yeah.
For the uninitiated, you remember those back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. For the uninitiated, you essentially turn a wine glass upside down on a table, mark out a few letters and numbers, and get a group of inebriated friends to put their finger on the wine glass, pretend there's a spook in the building, and, you know, with a bit of luck, bit of pushing, the wine glass spells something out, and you all go, ooh. Mm. Towards the end of the party, we tried this out, but without any success, surprisingly, and we left. However, despite our best intentions, we arrived back even after the 11 p.m. extension that Cream Buns had allowed us. We re-entered his study, expecting to be punished for being late. We decided to use the Ouija board as a novel excuse. We explained how brilliant the Ouija board had been, and we told a story of how we'd been in contact with the spirit of an ancient sea captain who only spoke Greek from the 17th century. Consequently, it was his fault that we were late leaving the party and not ourselves. Unbelievably, this excuse worked rather too well. Cream Buns completely forgot about us being late and questioned us about the Ouija board. He suggested that we join him for an experiment the following night to prove his skepticism theory. Well, unfortunately, I got a bit carried away with our new hero status for having stayed out so late. I happened to share our secret and our success with my brother, who is obviously known as Grabber Senior.
Okay.
Anyway, the following night, Gob and I arrived at a creaky old door which led to the old school library. This sits above the cloisters, and directly underneath the clock tower was the oldest part of the school and a bit creepy at the best of times. Here we set up the Ouija board on a round table with the upturned wine glass and various letters and numbers set out. Cream Buns then lit the candle and turned off all the lights. So this is the scene. It's midwinter. The room is freezing cold. It's pitch black other than one candle. It's deathly quiet. We're sitting round the table. The hairs on my neck are definitely sticking up. Cream Buns then gets out his ancient book and starts reading aloud. Now, I was never much good at Latin, but even I realised that this wasn't normal Latin. And sure enough, Cream Buns was reading the ancient Latin text backwards. His explanation was a bit of backmasking, big in the 60s. According to legend, that by reading this backwards, it would rustle up any spirits who happened to be cruising around, and we could then get in contact with them. This would further prove his skepticism about the whole thing.
Right, okay.
Now, the wine glass, I have to report, did move, and it spelt out the name of a person who was a knight in the 16th century called Sir Reginald. At this point, an argument developed in our room as Cream Buns said this was all gibberish.
Oh, really?
And accused Gob of pushing the wine glass around the table.
Yeah.
Gob vehemently denied this. So to settle the argument, we agreed to get the spirit to give us a sign that he existed to settle the argument, because this is, of course, how it works.
It's definitely how it works.
So we asked it, and then the wine glass stopped moving and a deadly hush descended, and we waited. And then the library door suddenly burst open all by itself, and the candle blew out and the door shut again. For a split second, there was pandemonium. Pandemonium. You see, the board had worked.
Yeah.
The wine glass had worked, except that it
course.
hadn't.
Yeah.
You'll never guess what happened, Father Simon. Well, I happen to know and can confess to you now that the person behind the door was my brother, and all the rest was me. You don't say. You mean
It wasn't the
it's
spirit?
a con?
No.
It's not the spirit of Sir Reginald from the 16th century. Anyway, clearly I need forgiveness. Not from Cream Buns, whose experiment was ruined, but he was a good sport. But mainly from Sir Reginald, the spirit, who, having been summoned, we never got to converse with properly. So was hanging around in limbo and might still be there. This is not, Father Simon, how you behave with the undead.
No, it's not.
Well, I mean,
Wow.
this is quite an interest. Not normally, it's I apologise to my mother, for all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But now we're apologising to the undead for behaving in an unseemly way. Well, Sister Susie, Heavenly Connections, what do you say?
But if it didn't work, how does he have to apologise to her? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Sir Reginald, I thought, was very, very funny. And yeah, Grabber and Gob, I just think, it did no harm. It was just a silly, I think it's fine. I think it's just a little game that you
Grabber
played.
Junior, Grabber Senior, Gob and Cream Buns. This could only be a boarding school in the 1960s.
Exactly. But I'm going to forgive you just because I don't think it was that bad. There was no one got hurt. It wasn't malicious. So therefore, you're forgiven.
It's looking good. Brother Matthew.
So, yes, cream buns, cloisters and clock towers. Very much like all our school days. I think we can all agree on that. How did cream buns manage to get a teaching role? This is supposed to be a 17th century sailing
Head of
captain.
classics,
who-
fluent
head
in
of
Latin and
classics,
Greek.
And he only learns Greek, and he's called Sir Reginald. At what point, cream buns, did you start raising your eyebrow? If we're going to be forgiving I'm going to say the undead have got other things on their mind. Just I'm no expert on the undead,
Are you not?
but I'm going to guess they've got other things, other fish to fry. So I'm going to say forgiven.
Okay, so it's the people's verdict. Do you forgive Grabber, yes or no? On the text 61054, start your message with Simon. 61054, start your message with Simon for the people's verdict, which is on the way. And if you have a confession, we would love to hear it. Already had tonight's confession, which came from Grabber, a tale of boarding school hilarity involving spirits, and yet somehow not, but involving Cream Buns, the fantastic classics teacher. People's verdict is in. It sounds like this.
So Ruthie says absolutely 100% forgiven, just because Father Simon had to keep saying gob on live radio.
That was Grabber's friend. It was
Indeed.
Grabber, Gob and Cream Buns.
Indeed. Shaz in Somerset. Ouija boards, no way. I've seen Ghostbusters, not forgiven. John Boy says totally not forgiven. Poor old Sir Reginald, stuck in internal limbo,
Yes.
who could only dream of a cigarette, glass of whiskey and a cream bun. And finally, Nick and Felix Stowe says, it's at times like these, I wonder what Timothy Walpole would do.
Well, it's a very good question, and if you have a confession, we would like to offer you a rather fantastic smart speaker. All you have to do is to compose your confession beautifully and for the right, not like pages and pages, no illegality and no laxatives, that's the way it goes, and send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.